with happiness surveys was that prior to about 2000, as wealth increased in a given nation, happiness went up. But starting about 20 years ago, in those same countries, happiness started to go down. And so I really do think it does beg the question, even if, especially since it's purely subjective, what is happening there? What's the phenomenon?
What are you saying? Why has the depression increased over the last 20 years? What is your point?
I believe that one potential contributor to rising rates of depression, anxiety, suicide in some countries is overabundance, and is our escalating consumption of highly reinforcing substances and behaviors and the drugification of everything.
And that's more in the last 20 years than the 10 years before that?
And by the way, when I say that, I'm not saying that mental illness is not a contributor. I'm not saying that trauma is not a contributor. I'm not saying that social dislocation is not a contributor. What I'm asking people to contemplate is whether or not it is our relentless pursuit of pleasure in all these different forms that is actually contributing to our misery. And I'm basing that on some inferences I'm making on the neuroscience, which do show that repeated consumption of highly reinforcing drugs and behaviors leads to a dopamine deficit state. And that's been well documented, that the pathophysiology of addiction is that intoxicants release a lot of dopamine all at once, but over time with repeated exposure, you end up in a chronic dopamine deficit state, which is our brain's attempt to compensate with this fire hose of too many reinforcers. And then you essentially change your hedonic set point. And this is true whether the drug is food, and we're looking at obesity. The reason that obese people have so much trouble losing weight is because they've essentially changed their hedonic set point, and they have a great deal of difficulty then changing that back, especially in an ecosystem where salt, fat, sugar, and flavorants have been added to even sliced bread, and on from there with almost everything that we do.